Our story begins in the Jedi Temple as the sun has set on Coruscant. Across the galaxy, the political changes were making waves in the Senate and in the Jedi Council. The voting was underway for a new Supreme Chancellor, and Queen Amidala was preparing to return home to Naboo, despite the Council's warnings. And on Naboo, the Trade Federation was occupying the planet in protest of the taxation of trade routes. Queen Amidala returning would put pressure on the Federation and could widen the conflict. But the Council also knew that having Amidala return to Naboo could also draw out the attacker that Qui Gon claims was a Sith. So, in Council, Yoda and Windu would tell Qui Gon that the boy will not be trained. Qui Gon put up a fight, saying he will train the boy, as Obi-Wan is ready for the trials. Windu said they will discuss more of this later. For now, they must return to Naboo. But then Yoda spoke up, opening his eyes after a very brief look into the Force, and he told the Council, and Qui-Gon, that he will go to Naboo instead. He told Qui-Gon that he is far too distracted to finish this mission. His focus is on young Skywalker's future, rather than the mission at hand. And Yoda continued, saying that the currents of the political landscape are all moving very fast, and as the leader of the Jedi Order, it should be him that goes to Naboo. If the Sith have truly returned, then he will be the one to extinguish them once more. And the Trade Federation must learn that they cannot threaten an entire population like this without true Jedi interference. In all honesty, Qui-Gon was surprised by this answer. It was almost exactly what he always wanted Yoda to do, act on the will of the Force as the Jedi Grand Master. Yoda finished by saying that Obi-Wan Kenobi will come with him, and this will be Kenobi's trial to see if he is truly ready for knighthood. Qui-Gon could sense Kenobi's nervousness, and he chuckled before telling his Padawan that he will pass this test with ease. So, Qui-Gon would walk down to the landing pad with Anakin, and the two of them would say goodbye to Yoda, Obi-Wan, Jar Jar, Queen Amidala, the droids, and Naboo security. The group blasted off into hyperspace, and this would leave Qui-Gon alone with young Anakin. He smiled down at the boy, asking if he's ready for his first lessons. Anakin sadly said that the Council said he will not be trained, but Qui-Gon bent down, looking at him with another smile, saying that if he always listened to the Jedi Council, he'd probably be dead by now. He assured Anakin that the Council is very wise, but their involvement in politics has made them much more jaded. He promised Anakin they will come around, and he will be a Jedi. And in hyperspace, Obi-Wan Kenobi found an area on the ship where he could be alone for a bit. He was overwhelmed. This mission was with Grand Master Yoda himself, and it was to determine if he would be a knight. Part of Obi-Wan didn't want to be separated from Qui-Gon, for as great of a Jedi that Obi-Wan may be, he did tend to have trouble with attachments, whether it was Siri Tachi growing up, Satine Kryze on the mission to Mandalore, or his own Master Qui-Gon. Obi-Wan always grew close to the people who were friendly with him. Whenever Obi-Wan reflected on this, he figured it had to be because of his early life as a Jedi. He was always the weakest in his clan, the slowest, the least powerful with the Force, and the teachers in the temple were always disappointed in Obi-Wan, even if they never truly showed it. So, when people like Siri, Satine, or Qui-Gon truly believed in him, Obi-Wan didn't want to leave them. And as he thought about this, his anxieties began to rise until the calming presence of Yoda slowly waddled into the storage room that Obi-Wan was hiding in. He asked Kenobi if he was hiding, and when Obi-Wan began to stutter for an answer, Yoda laughed and told Kenobi to sit with him. So, the two of them sat together, and Yoda told Obi-Wan that Qui-Gon is one of the most interesting Jedi that he's encountered in his long life. But at the end of the day, he's also one of the Jedi that Yoda has ever trusted the most. And yet, this boy that Qui-Gon has presented them, great fear he has inside of him. 10 years of life as a slave, growing close to his mother, truly feeling the evil of this galaxy. Yoda wondered aloud if this boy will someday feel the dark side, and if it will be familiar to him. It will remind him of his early life. Anakin will cling to it, and if that happens, with the power dwelling inside of the boy, it could change everything. Obi-Wan sat silently for a moment, then asked Yoda if he could speak honestly. Yoda smiled, telling Kenobi that he would like nothing more, as oftentimes, the mind of a younger Jedi can be much more aware of the current state of things. So, Obi-Wan said that the Jedi should train Anakin. Well, Qui-Gon should train him, but not in any traditional sense. Anakin has already seen the worst of the galaxy. He's experienced friends, family, love, some sense of community. Perhaps he should be trained in a way unlike anyone else. He should continue to be shown that friendship, that love, and he should truly understand what separates the Jedi from the rest of the galaxy in the light. Let Qui-Gon train Anakin however he sees fit. As Yoda just said, he trusts Qui-Gon. Yoda thought about this, thanking Obi-Wan for his insights, saying he will meditate on it, and Obi-Wan wondered what his approach would be if he were to train Anakin. He likely would have had to rely on the Council's teachings and be very traditional, as he's never trained a Jedi, but Qui-Gon, being much more experienced, could be perfect to give Anakin what he needs. And then, Yoda would ask Obi-Wan all about himself and his journey to this moment, as the two of them would just talk for the entire trip to Naboo. And back on Coruscant, Qui-Gon was just taking Anakin throughout the Jedi Temple. They walked through the Temple Museum, seeing things from thousands of years ago. They saw the agricultural research area, the Room of 1,000 Fountains, gyms, lightsaber crafting areas, and in every room, Anakin would meet Jedi who greeted him with kindness. They were all different from the Council Jedi, who seemed to be jaded, scared, or just living in their own hubris. And soon, they walked past the holographic training room. Anakin would watch Mace Windu, wielding a purple lightsaber, move between holographic enemies, wielding their own blades. Windu moved faster than anyone that Anakin had ever seen. The boy was thoroughly impressed. Windu may be a you-know-what, but he could certainly fight. And this tour from Qui-Gon would take many hours, as soon they would find former Jedi Master Dooku, now the Count of Sereno. Dooku was just visiting Coruscant and the Jedi, and today he would greet Qui-Gon, then ask about the Sith Lord he apparently encountered on Tatooine. Qui-Gon was happy to speak with someone who he knew would take this seriously, so he told Dooku all about the horned man that tried to kill him. He was trained in the Jedi arts, infused with the dark side. The darkness that both of them have sensed rising in the galaxy has certainly reared its head, and Yoda has gone off to Naboo to find it. Dooku was taken aback by this, asking if Yoda truly went to Naboo. Qui-Gon said that he too was surprised by this, and the two of them would say goodbye, as Dooku's tone suddenly seemed to change. It were as if this news of Yoda going to Naboo completely changed his attitude and his demeanor. Qui-Gon brushed it off for now, then continued guiding Anakin around, until they came to a balcony. And outside on this balcony, Qui-Gon would watch two Jedi speeders suddenly depart from the temple hangar, one of them flown by Dooku, and the other flown by Master Yaddle. Qui-Gon suddenly had a bad feeling about this. He wondered if he overlooked some change in Dooku recently. He would hurry Anakin back through the temple, finding Mace Windu exiting the temple locker rooms after his training workout. Qui-Gon would ask Windu if he would watch the boy, and before Windu could say anything, Qui-Gon was gone. So, Anakin and Windu were left alone, and Windu told the boy to follow him. He likes to meditate after training. Anakin would follow close behind, nervous about being with Windu, and also wondering where Qui-Gon has gone. Qui-Gon, meanwhile, would get into a speeder, taking off in the same direction that Yaddle and Dooku just went. He was having trouble tracking them in the city, so Qui-Gon flew until he was in the abandoned industrial area, and Qui-Gon would search the area for a long time, using his binoculars, wondering if he went to the wrong area. But finally, he would find that his hunch was correct. Far in the distance, he saw Yaddle's speeder parked atop a tall building. Qui-Gon flew to another building close by, got out of his speeder, and used his binoculars to see the building that Yaddle was in. The hangar door was lifted open, and Qui-Gon would see Yaddle at that door. In front of her was Dooku, lightsaber ignited, with a dark figure lingering in the back. Only his yellow eyes were truly visible. Qui-Gon saw Yaddle fall, and then be struck down by Dooku's blade. Qui-Gon felt frozen, and then he thought he saw the yellow eyes flicker to look at him. Maybe he was just seeing things, but still, he dove to the ground and waited until the hangar door was shut once more to take off in his speeder. He felt heartbroken, angry. His own master, the man who trained him for years on staying in the light and being a great Jedi, has turned to the dark side. Qui-Gon knew all about Dooku's disagreements with the Jedi. In fact, Qui-Gon shared many of those disagreements, but this was beyond too far. His own master was a Jedi killer. Qui-Gon wondered if there could be any redemption for him, but he knew one thing for certain. If any Jedi could speak with Dooku and get him to come back, reveal the truth about the Sith, it is him. And meanwhile, across the galaxy, things on Naboo would certainly be moving quickly. Yoda would help to convince Boss Nass and the Gungans to aid them in their fight, and then Yoda would lead Queen Amidala and her security team through the streets to take the fight to Gunray himself. Obi-Wan followed close behind, and when they reached the hangar, Yoda gave Obi-Wan a new mission. Get into a Naboo starfighter, lead the fighters into the sky to destroy the Trade Federation capital ship. Obi-Wan wanted to complain. He really did not love flying after a recent mission where a ship he was in could not be taken off autopilot while flying through a ship corridor. He asked Yoda what he will be doing, and then the hangar doors opened to reveal the Sith Lord Maul. Obi-Wan understood that it would not be wise to disobey Yoda in this moment, so he hurried over to a ship, taking off as Yoda was now standing alone across from the Sith Lord. When the hangar was cleared of starships and security personnel, Yoda just stood in front of Maul, not saying a word. The Sith apprentice had both sides of his blade ignited, pacing back and forth in front of Yoda. Sidious was trying to contact Maul after learning from Dooku that Yoda is on Naboo, but Maul was deep in his Sith meditation, preparing to face the Jedi. And when the doors opened and he saw Yoda, he was astounded by just how small this Jedi was. He knew about Yoda, he knew about how powerful he was meant to be, and yet, seeing him so small in size gave Maul a false sense of security. Eventually, though, he made his move, spinning to kill Yoda, but as he swung, Yoda flipped over him, then reached out a hand, blasting Maul backwards through the hangar. Maul skidded across the floor, stopping his slide at the hangar entrance, overlooking extremely heavy brush and trees. Maul scrambled to his feet, pulling his lightsaber back into his hands, and realizing this is not going to be so easy. Yoda would remove his top layered robe, and his lightsaber would flip into his hands. He told Maul that he should surrender now, before it is too late. He does not have to go down this path of darkness any longer. Whatever has poisoned his mind and controlled his life, he can still come back. For a second, Yoda thought he saw a light behind Maul's eyes. He thought he saw Maul's hands waver on the saber. But in a split second, it was completely gone, and Maul reached out, ripping shrapnel from the walls, throwing it down at Yoda. So Yoda leapt into the air, flipping past all of it, then landing on a larger piece and spinning off of it right towards Maul. Yoda landed and twisted low, striking quickly at Maul, his short frame darting around Maul's strikes. Each time Maul brought his blade down, Yoda met it with speed, redirecting it without slowing down. The duel would spill out towards the edge of the hangar, where the roar of the waterfall was growing louder. Maul tried to use the terrain, forcing Yoda back towards the hangar drop, unleashing a storm of rapid strikes. Yoda absorbed the momentum, cutting into every strike, and the Sith would charge again, but Yoda shifted the flow of it. With a blur of movement, he slipped past Maul's guard, striking low, forcing Maul to stumble. Another quick spin carried Yoda behind him, where he severed one end of the double saber. Maul snarled, pressing forward with the remaining blade, but Yoda was relentless now, movements tighter, sharper, each strike draining Maul's advantage. Finally, Yoda would vault high, blade cutting down with decisive force. Yoda's blade sliced right through Maul's shoulder. He dropped his remaining saber, as his arm went completely limp, barely even hanging on. Yoda landed in front of him, and Maul reached out, trying to grab Yoda in a force choke with his one good hand, but Yoda flipped forward again towards Maul, slicing his head clean off his body. Maul's body fell over, his hand still making the force choke grip, and the hangar fell silent. Part of Yoda wished he tried more to convince the Sith to leave the darkness, but he could feel how far gone this Sith was. There was no turning him, and Yoda was low on time. Meanwhile, in space, Obi-Wan banked his starfighter skimming along the surface of the colossal Federation ship, targeting exposed weak points where the shield generators were connecting. A volley of fire tore into the emitters, cracking the protective field, leaving the battleship vulnerable just for a bit. Obi-Wan uncovered the only weakness outside of the ship, the connective parts for the shields, and he led the squadron in a daring dive through a hangar bay, blasting vultures and droid control stations inside. Debris erupted around them, and Obi-Wan's calm demeanor guided his fighter clear of the firestorm. Each strike he made was deliberate, wearing down the ship piece by piece, and as the battle continued, Obi-Wan identified the battleship's core reactor conduits running along the ship. He tore through the protective plating, launching a torpedo right into the exposed area. The shot buried deep into the vessel before detonating, triggering a violent chain reaction. Fire burst from within, and the ship would explode, securing victory on Naboo. Yoda would run up to find Queen Amidala and her team have captured Gunray. The mission was a success. And across the galaxy, Dooku was back in the Jedi Temple after killing Yaddle. He was just given a new mission by Darth Sidious after being officially named the Sith Apprentice. He was ordered to take Qui-Gon Jinn on a secret mission and kill his former apprentice. This, in time, will allow Anakin Skywalker, the so-called Chosen One, to eventually join the Sith. Qui-Gon popped into the meditation room to find Anakin sitting with Windu, trying to learn Jedi meditation. Anakin was now in youngling robes, given to him by Windu, and Mace just told Qui-Gon that these were the only clothes around. Qui-Gon smiled, knowing the boy's upbeat personality may be working on Mace, and he told them he's going to be gone a bit longer. Mace said this was fine, but when Qui-Gon was gone, Mace realized he couldn't find his lightsaber anywhere. Qui-Gon would then go and find Dooku, tucking a lightsaber into his belt, and Dooku kindly greeted him, then asked Qui-Gon if he would be willing to come on a mission with him. He's going to the moon Montero, orbiting Sereno, as a group of pirates have been raiding the area. Dooku admitted it could be dangerous, but Qui-Gon would quickly accept, and both of them knew what this mission truly was. This is where Dooku would kill Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon was betting on himself to be able to talk Dooku out of this darkness. Dooku had no idea that Qui-Gon knew that he was working with the Sith. So, together, the two of them would fly through hyperspace, and Qui-Gon would spend the trip reflecting on their life together as master and apprentice, prying on Dooku's heartstrings, or at least what remained of his good heart. Qui-Gon couldn't shake the memory of Dooku's blade, striking down Master Yaddle, and finally, they would land on Montero. The two of them walked to the area that Dooku said the pirates were hiding out on, and Qui-Gon would ask about the history of this moon. It was known on Sereno as the Funeral Moon. The area was barren of plant life. It was extremely rocky, largely flat, but with many ravines opening in the ground to reveal lakes of lava. And after walking for a long time, they came upon the edge of a deep ravine, looking down on one of these lava lakes. Qui-Gon knew what this was. Dooku ignited his lightsaber, telling Qui-Gon he's sorry it has come to this. Qui-Gon turned, and he would throw his own lightsaber to the side. It clattered away, and he just told Dooku to look inward upon himself. He knows this is not the way. Dooku said it is the only way. And then Qui-Gon asked why he's been ordered to kill him. What danger does he present to the Sith? Dooku didn't answer, so Qui-Gon answered for him, saying the Sith Lord wants the Chosen One, correct? Again, Dooku didn't answer, so Qui-Gon knew he was right. So now he pressed Dooku, asking what happens to him when Anakin becomes powerful enough to replace him. He will be thrown away like nothing, because the treachery of the Sith knows no bounds. Dooku stepped forward now, blade getting inches from Qui-Gon's face, as he told Qui-Gon that he doesn't understand. The Sith control everything. Banking, trade, commerce. All of it is tied to the Sith. The Republic is now being led by the Sith, while the Jedi blindly sit atop their perch in their shiny temple. And Dooku realized he's revealed too much. Qui-Gon would say one name, the name that has risen to power quicker than anyone could have anticipated: Palpatine. Dooku looked to the side, seeing the planet Sereno in the sky, wondering if this path was truly the best path for the people of the galaxy. There was no turning back now. He turned back to Qui-Gon, saying he will do what he must for the future of the galaxy, and he moved forward, knowing Qui-Gon was defenseless, stabbing to kill him. But Qui-Gon would sidestep, igniting a purple blade right through Dooku's chest. The plasma burned through his ribs and out of his spine, and Dooku realized he was tricked. Qui-Gon had given him a chance to come back, but Dooku did not take it, and now he would die, falling to his knees. Qui-Gon said he is so sorry, and Dooku fell dead into the ravine here on the funeral moon of Sereno, laid to rest with so many of his ancestors. Qui-Gon extinguished the purple blade that he borrowed from Windu, and he grabbed his own saber from the ground before somberly leaving the moon, with the knowledge of who the Sith Lord truly is. Upon returning to the Jedi Temple, Qui-Gon would find that Obi-Wan and Yoda have returned in victory from Naboo. Anakin and Windu were here with the two of them, and Anakin ran over to Qui-Gon to tell him that they're all headed back to Naboo this evening for a grand parade celebration to reunite the Gungans and the Naboo people after this victory. Qui-Gon would smile to Anakin, secretly imagining a future where Dooku got his way and Anakin was groomed by the Sith. It gave him great distress, but he told Anakin to wait a moment. Then he spoke to Yoda and Mace. Qui-Gon would tell them everything, and soon the Jedi would come up with a plan to take down the final Sith Lord. As Chancellor Palpatine was preparing to take off to Naboo for the celebration on his home world, he was informed that a Jedi security team would be flying in his Republic transport ship to protect him after the emergence of the Sith on Naboo. Palpatine tried to protest, but his aides agreed this was a good idea. So, Yoda, Windu, Mundi, Adi Gallia, and Qui Gon Jinn would board this ship. Anakin and Obi-Wan were flying separately, and Obi-Wan was told to protect Anakin in case anything goes wrong. The two of them would get to know each other better in hyperspace, and it would spark the beginning of what could be a long, prosperous friendship. But in the other ship flying through hyperspace, events would soon get underway. The 5 Jedi would request to enter Palpatine's private chambers on this transport, using Jedi mind tricks to get past the guards, and they would confront the Sith Lord. Sidious would tell them that the Jedi Order will be accused of treason for this, but Windu just said, so be it, and they all ignited their blades, saying the Sith will never rule over the Republic. The clash began the instant that Sidious ignited his red blade. The room was tight, every movement had to be perfect. Sabers were crashing so close that sparks were showering against the walls. Sidious shifted, his blade snapping down to catch Gallia's strike, before a free hand lashed out with a burst of lightning that slammed her against the roof. Mundi lunged to cover her, thrusting with his saber, but Sidious spun, catching the attack, twisting his blade upward right through Mundi's chest, while also impaling Adi Gallia as she fell back to the floor. Sidious laughed as Windu and Qui-Gon pressed in, Windu's crushing strikes hammering his defenses, while Qui-Gon's steady, measured cuts left no room for any escape. Sidious was able to kick Qui-Gon away, but then Yoda flew in between them, striking at Sidious's knees, his wrists, keeping his blade in constant motion. Sidious lashed out with a flurry of counterattacks, speed tearing chunks from the walls and the floor, but Windu's purple blade locked him high, while Yoda went low and Qui-Gon saw the opening. He stepped in, and with a powerful, deliberate thrust, he cut down the Sith Lord as he was focused on Yoda and Windu. Sidious fell, his saber clattering to the floor. The Jedi stood over his fallen body in the silence of the transport, with Qui-Gon knowing Anakin would be safe. Upon landing on Naboo, they would be forced to reveal the truth, with proof from the security recordings in the ship. Sidious was exposed as a Sith Lord, the same type of Dark Force user that was killed on Naboo a bit ago, and the Republic would be shown the truth of who they elected. In the end, Sidious was wrong. The galaxy still trusted the Jedi at this point, so the Jedi would not be accused of treason. But even still, they would begin separating from the Senate after seeing how manipulated they were. It was Yoda who led the Jedi in this new direction, as his talks with Obi-Wan helped Yoda to see that his traditional ways were stale. It was time for the Jedi to evolve, and the first steps were about spreading into the galaxy, allowing Anakin to be trained in a very untraditional way by Qui-Gon. The Jedi Order would settle in on Jedha, Tython, and Naboo, 3 different worlds, and over the years, Qui-Gon would be the perfect master for Anakin. The boy continued to love, to be who he was meant to be, and he would be a hero throughout the galaxy, helping those who need the Jedi, and being a beacon of light in the galaxy. And folks, that is our story for today. I've done, what if Yoda went with Qui-Gon to Naboo, but I was just coming up with ideas, and I like the idea of Qui-Gon kind of tailing Dooku to the Coruscant lair, but not encountering him there, and then those two having kind of a showdown on a different planet. And ultimately that gave me the idea, how would I do that? Someone else has to go to Naboo, Yoda goes to Naboo, and then I was like, well, I want to give Yoda a bit of an arc, and then I thought Obi-Wan can do that. And I usually in these stories that involve Qui-Gon, right? Obi-Wan is sometimes, not on purpose, but just for the convenience, I guess, he's sometimes tossed aside in these stories, and it's just kind of a given that he becomes a good Jedi. But I wanted to give Obi-Wan a really interesting arc in this one, where he kind of helps Yoda to see that Anakin should be trained, and Obi-Wan's smart enough to know that he wouldn't be the right master for him. He knows how Qui-Gon should train him, so I wanted to take that path and have him destroy the Federation ship as well. So yeah, Anakin, Qui-Gon, Sidious. I thought it was a fun arc for pretty much everyone around, including Dooku. Rest in peace. Sorry. Appreciate you guys. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you in the next video.